I think you all know what autotune is and what it's for, but today we're going to talk about its incredible story. Today we'll find out who invented it and how. It's an incredible story. When I heard it I was amazed. When you speed up a sound it gets higher, and when you slow it down it gets lower, but the problem with tuning human voices like this is that they get out of sync with the music. The solution to this problem was found by Andy Hildenren. He is an American engineer known for the development of geophysical prospecting techniques for the petrochemical industry. According to one interview, he did not consider himself to be a normal child, and although he spent a lot of time between books he did not adapt very well to the school format, where it was difficult for him to spend much time sitting in class. However, over the years his school performance gradually improved until he finally developed an interest in science. His interest in science initially led him to obtain an undergraduate degree in systems science in Michigan and to work at the United States Naval Engineering Center in Washington, D.C., where he worked on inertial navigation systems and contributed to the development of the SRN-9 system, which is one of the predecessors of GPS. About this experience, Andy mentioned to one of his interviewers that at that time the GPS signal receivers weighed 1 ton and were 3 meters high. Today they are just a chip in the phone. Later, he became more interested in mathematics than hardware and went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he earned a master's degree in 1972 and a doctorate in 1976 in electrical engineering, with the title of his dissertation Nonlinear Filters for Estimating an Insect Population Density. After obtaining his doctorate, Andy moved to Texas in 1976 to work for Exxon Production Research, one of the largest companies in the oil sector, where he developed geophysical prospecting techniques to analyze the registration of signals from controlled explosions that traveled through the soil and from which the presence of hydrocarbons in the soil matrix could be inferred, or commonly one can say that he was blowing up dynamite on planes. The explosion generated acoustic waves, which were transmitted to the lower layers of the ground. Then these waves were reversed. He put some receptors on the surface, and from these bounces his mathematical model allowed him to know if there was oil or not. So useful was this system, that he estimated that it had generated $500 million for Exxon. Taking into account inflation, this would be approximately $1.5 billion. Andy didn't feel sufficiently valued or rewarded for what he did, so he decided with 3 other colleagues to found Landmark Graphics, which produced workstations for companies in the oil industry or that required interpretation of seismic test data. With this company in 1999, the 4 founders were awarded the Cecil Green Enterprise Award by the Geophysical Exploration Society of the United States. Landmark Graphics was sold in 1989 for $525 million. With a fully covered retirement, Andy decided to focus on another of his passions, music. Andy began studying music composition in 1989 at the Shepherd School of Music located on the Rice University campus in Houston, Texas. The music woke up the engineer inside him again, and he created important sampling systems for the time, but it didn't give him much money, or at least what he was used to. One day Andy was eating and talking with a colleague's wife. Jokingly she said, "Why don't you invent a machine that makes me sing well?" They continued with the food, and Andy didn't give it much thought at the time, but this comment sparked his interest, and 6 months later he had a machine that tuned you up instantly. Andy discovered that the system he used for oil was the same one that could tune human voices. Before this type of tool existed, sound technicians had to make multiple recordings of the same songs and then put the pieces together in order to obtain the desired quality. This was very costly in terms of time and money. Music industry engineers had previously considered the use of autocorrelation impractical because of the extremely large computational effort required, but Hildebrand found a simplification that changed a million multiply adds into just 4. It was a mathematical trick, so Hildebrand put the system he had developed into a device with knobs and buttons to adjust the tuning and sold his product to the Los Angeles studios. While working with Cher on the song Believe in 1998, producers Mark Taylor and Brian Rawling discovered that if they set auto-tune on its most aggressive setting, so that it corrected the pitch at the exact moment it received the signal, the result was an unsettlingly robotic tone. But the producers of Cher didn't want to tell how they did it and lied, saying they did it with a vocoder, always avoiding the questions. Other producers who had the auto-tune discovered that the famous Cher effect was made with the auto-tune. The use of auto-tune as a vocal effect was bolstered in the late 2000s by hip-hop R&B recording artist T-Pain, who elaborated on the effect and made active use of auto-tune in his songs. He cites New Jack Swing producer Teddy Riley and funk artist Roger Troutman's use of the talk box as inspirations for his own use of auto-tune. T-Pain became so associated with auto-tune that he had an iPhone app named after him that simulated the effect, called I Am T-Pain. Today the auto-tune is one of the most used tools in recording studios, but it is not used as aggressively as the producers of Cher. However, other country music singers, such as Alison Moorer, Garth Brooks, Big and Amp, Rich, Trish Yearwood, Vince Gill and Martina McBride, have refused to use auto-tune. Auto-tune today is still one of the most acclaimed and hated tools in the music world. At the 51st Grammy Awards in early 2009, the band Death Cab for Cutie made an appearance wearing blue ribbons to protest against the use of auto-tune in the music industry. Later that spring, Jay-Z titled the lead single of his album The Blueprint 3 as DOA, Death of Auto-Tune. Jay-Z elaborated that he wrote the song under the personal belief that far too many people had jumped on the auto-tune bandwagon, and that the trend had become a gimmick. Christina Aguilera appeared in public in Los Angeles on August 10, 2009, wearing a t-shirt that read "Auto-tune is for pussies." When later interviewed by SiriusXM, however, she said that auto-tune could be used in a creative way and noted her song Elastic Love from Bionic uses it. Despite its negative reputation, some critics have argued that auto-tune opens up new possibilities in pop music, especially in hip-hop and R&B. Instead of using it as a crutch for poor vocals its originally designed purpose, some musicians intentionally use the technology to mediate and augment their artistic expression. When French house duo Daft Punk was questioned about their use of auto-tune in their single One More Time, Thomas Bangalter replied by saying, "A lot of people complain about musicians using auto-tune. It reminds me of the late 70s when musicians in France tried to ban the synthesizer. What they didn't see was that you could use those tools in a new way instead of just for replacing the instruments that came before." The auto-tune is an incredible tool that has allowed good singers to sound not good if not perfect. There are also people who use it to make songs out of any speech. Someone says, "I also understand that it can be upsetting to see someone with no talent being very successful, but in the end it's the people who choose who to listen to." I think that's it. Give a like if you like it and see you soon.